Hey you guys, Marlyn with Beautiful Bina Designs, back with another card share video. I've missed you guys. I'm sorry it's taken me this long before I was able to get back and share another video with you, but I am excited to be here today to share some cards that I've made with Simon Says Stamp June 2018 card kit, which I believe they're calling Fly Me Away. If you had an opportunity to check out my Arteza Real Brush watercolor marker sort of first impression video, I bought the 24 pack, I tried it out, and I immediately shared my opinion and my results with you guys. If you had an opportunity to see that, these two card panels will look familiar. These were my very first two attempts. This was my first one. I stamped the large floral stamp from this month's card kit. I stamped it using Memento ink without really thinking that through. I did allow the ink to dry, but when I brought water to this white watercolor paper, you'll see what happened. It turned murky gray. I did go back in later and color that large rose with the red Arteza watercolor marker, and I added some Wink of Stella on top. I used a couple of cardstock layers here, and I think it turned out ultimately to be sort of a happy accident because I do like this card. I think it's different looking, and certainly it's not something that I did intentionally, but I do like it. So there's card number one from this kit. The second card, this was another experimental card panel. This, again, is the Arteza watercolor markers. And here I brought the markers directly to the paper. So this is full pigment. I wanted to see the colors that were in the set and really try to get a feel for how to use the markers. I had never had an opportunity really to use watercolor markers before. So as a total newbie, I dove right in, and this is what I came up with. Granted, the color scheme is not perfect, but again, I really just wanted to see what was in that set of markers, and ultimately I decided to go ahead and make a card out of the panel that I created. I mounted this to the Periwinkle cardstock that came with the kit. I did spray that Periwinkle cardstock with the Distress Resist spray, and I had intended to go over that with some Distress Oxide and ink blend that panel, but the color that I was planning to use, I just didn't really like the way that it looked. So fortunately I had used a lot of Distress Resist, and I was able to wipe most of that ink away, and I just left the spray itself, which I know it's intended for techniques, but I don't know how easy it is to see on the camera. The spray actually leaves a texture and a lot of interest. There is a sheen and some tone-on-tone sort of splatter. That looks kind of cool. So I left that alone. And most of these cards, almost all of them, I think there's one exception, is that my card base is white cardstock from my stash. It's Cougar Digital 110 pound. That's what I use most of the time, A2 size. Next, I feel like we were almost obligated to use that beautiful 3D embossing folder with this gold paper. I mean, look at the bang for the buck from that embossing folder. That is an incredible look. I used the gold paper that came in the kit, some watercolor paper on top, gold embossing powder to put the sentiment of love and hugs, as well as, again, that large floral stamp. This time I used the Arteza again, but this time I used them with water. So I was laying the color down on an acrylic block and picking it up with a watercolor brush, dropping it into the embossed watercolor paper here. Again, mounted that onto a white card base. Once again, another design with the Arteza watercolor marker. I'm trying to get you as least amount of glare as possible here. This I used only one color, and I added deeper pigment in certain spots, less in others by controlling the amount of water that I used. And then over the entire thing, I added a little bit of splatter at the end. I added a gold strip a few sequins, and a peacock cardstock card panel behind that before mounting it onto a white card base. Tone on tone, we have like 2 colors here, but I really like that elegant look. Next, we have a little bit of a softer design. Once again, I introduced just a little bit of the Arteza watercolor, but I also used some of that beautiful watercolor patterned paper. Over here, I had a sheet of cardstock that I had Distress ink blended, and I did include a little bit of that Distress Resist spray in there as well. So you can see some droplets. I'm not sure how easy it is to see on the camera. I mounted this onto a card panel of that smoke cardstock and sprayed over all of it with a shimmer mist before adding the sentiment, the finale of the sentiment, which was birthday, to read happy, happy, happy birthday. That birthday is stamped on a thin strip of vellum, corner rounded for a softer look. This one is a lot of bling here. This is a little bit outside of my norm. I call this my Mardi Gras card because of the colors. It just makes me think of Mardi Gras. But again, I used that 3D embossing folder on the gold cardstock, added some peacock cardstock up top, a little bit of black lace from my stash. Again, another early attempt at the watercolor with those Arteza markers. I got better and better at it as I went along. And then some sequins. You are a treasure to me, sort of a any occasion kind of card. Here again we have a softer look, some of that patterned paper, which I used some strategic die cutting with the stitched rounded rectangle and then a couple of border dies. Inside a piece of watercolor cardstock, Arteza markers to watercolor the word beautiful. You are so beautiful. A little bow there, and just a little bit of a matte of that gray cardstock. Here we ran the smoke gray cardstock through that 3D embossing folder. That is just beautiful. I don't even think the camera does it justice. Another example of the Arteza watercolor on one of those flower stamps. This time embossed in a silver sparkle embossing powder. Love and Hugs sentiment. Fussy cut out that flower. Pretty simple design here, but very elegant. Another simple design, but one of my favorites actually. We've got a tone on tone. I took that large floral stamp and stamped it this way on the top and this way on the bottom. And then I stamped that in a clear Distress embossing ink. That is, I don't use Versamark. I have the Distress embossing ink. It works quite well for me. I like it. So I've been using that one. And then I just went over it with a clear embossing powder to give it some shine, and you can really see that design, but it is just a tone on tone. And then we have a dotted rectangle, happy birthday. Another ink blended flower that was fussy cut out, and then a piece of washi tape from my stash. Here we have, I feel like I always have to have at least one shaker in the mix, right? This one, beautiful, is repeatedly stamped across this periwinkle cardstock. I created a shaker window using one of those beautiful watercolor floral patterns as the background there, accented with orange, used some twine here. You are so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful with those orange sequins. Another very simple design. This is, once again, that large floral stamp, and I embossed it in a rose gold embossing powder. Did some second generation stamping up here just for some subtle interest. And I dropped in just very subtle color, again using the Arteza markers and a watercolor brush. Just very, very light coloring there, a lot of water. I used one of the pattern papers from the kit as my background, and once again mounted that onto Cougar Digital 110-pound cardstock. And finally, my favorite card from the kit that I made this month is this one right here. Again, a fairly simple card, but that's what I like about it. It is simple, but I think could be very touching and is surely going to be received as handmade. You are a treasure to me, embossed in white with one of those flowers, a few sequins, both circle and star shaped, and again, an all occasion card can be used for many, many reasons. So you guys, thank you so much for stopping by and visiting with me today to take a look at the Simon Says Stamp June 2018 card kit, the cards that I created this month. I do, as always, appreciate when you stop by and visit with me. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. I will have, as I had previously mentioned, a 6 cards, 1 stamp set video coming up. I am going to be using the stamp set that I bought at Joann a while back. I did mention it in a previous video. If you didn't catch that video, don't worry about it. I'll get you completely caught up in my next video when I share the cards that I've made with that stamp set. Also, as I had previously mentioned, I do have a giveaway coming up, so please stay tuned and keep your eyes out for that. And you guys, most importantly, I hope that your visit here with me today has inspired you to make beautiful things. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.